The most exciting car of the year deserves our most thorough test of the year. So we've got two versions of the Toyota GR Yaris, some great roads and one bitter rival.
You'll know the GR Yaris story well by now. Originally conceived as a rally homologation special, it has almost nothing in common with a standard Yaris. Its body shell is bespoke, the roof line very low, and the arches extravagantly swollen. There are lightweight panels to save weight, plus a carbon fibre roof. There's double wishbone suspension at the rear, a trick four-wheel drive system with a switchable centre diff, and beneath the bonnet, a little 3-pot turbo engine that's rippling with power and torque. Power is rated at 261 horsepower and torque at 266 pound-foot. Toyota says the GR Yaris will crack 62 miles per hour in 5.5 seconds and run on to 143.
Let's start by having a little poke around the interior of the GR Yaris. It's got a very distinctive cabin, lots of these sort of fluent, flowing forms all over the place. Lots of these oval shapes and swooping curves. It's quite a distinctive cabin. There are a few things that aren't brilliant about it. For instance, the rear view mirror is in your face and it's very low. It seems very close. And it leaves only a very thin gap between the bottom of the mirror and the base of the screen. So when you're going around a tight left-hander, you find yourself doing that to peer underneath the mirror. It's a bit odd. This screen here, it's not brilliant. It's sort of a bit of a stretch away to get to this corner of it. It feels like it could be canted round towards the driver. A few people have said that the seating position isn't right for them, that the seat is too high. I'm normally very sensitive to a seat that doesn't drop low enough, but actually this one for me is absolutely fine. Seating position is good. I like it. Steering wheel comes out to greet me. Pedals are where I want them as well. I think it's a good driving environment. I do like this cabin.
This is the less hardcore version. It's a non-circuit pack car, so it doesn't have the LSDs or the firmer springs and dampers. It has got the convenience pack, which includes things like sat-nav and a better stereo. It costs £32,175, and the top spec circuit pack car, £33,495. That version gets more focused suspension, Michelin tyres, upgraded brakes, and a Torsen limited slip differential in each axle. Sadly, there will no longer be a World Rally Championship version of this car, but 25,000 road-going examples will still be built. We'll come back to the circuit pack car in a moment. Let's get started with the more basic model.
I really like this little 3-cylinder engine. It's a proper ripper. I thought it might feel a little bit weedy, but it doesn't. It pulls really hard from about 4,000 RPM all the way round to the red line. Makes the car feel so strong, actually. It's not wanting for power or torque at all. I like the steering. It's pin sharp. It's maybe not the most talkative, but it doesn't matter because the whole car is talkative. You just have a sense, an inherent, intuitive sense of how much grip there is. Great front axle, really lean on it, but it's not so grippy that you just feel like you're never getting anywhere near the limit. There's this artificial aspect to the soundtrack that comes through the speakers, but it's quite convincing. And then you've got this sort of gas rushing sound from the exhaust. The suspension is almost supple. Actually, in this convenience pack car, it is supple. It deals with a bumpy road beautifully. It doesn't try and pummel it. I wonder what it's going to be like, this GR Yaris on stiffer suspension. That'll be interesting. Most of the time, it just feels like a really well-sorted front-wheel drive hot hatch. It's lovely. It's got great balance, lovely body control. Feels like a light car in that sense. Really transparent, predictable grip. I love the compact dimensions, really work on a typical small British B road. But it's only when you get onto a smaller road with tighter bends that you start to appreciate that four-wheel drive system and feel it doing its thing. You feel the car just starting to four-wheel drift on the way out of bends, and it gets better the harder and harder you go. But I just want a bit more from it. I want to be aware more of the time that this car has got that wonderful four-wheel drive system. I want to feel it sliding away from a corner a bit more willingly. I want it to feel even more different to a front-wheel drive hot hatch. I think I want to try the circuit pack car. I think I want to see if a stiffer suspension setup and if those two limited slip differentials make all the difference.
A very promising start. The question is, should you pay a little more to have the circuit pack? It has no more power, but a much more purposeful chassis.
This is the more serious one, the circuit pack. And you do feel it straight away actually. It's got a more tense ride, a busier ride, particularly at low speed. It feels a lot firmer, or a bit firmer, than the convenience pack car. It's not over stiff, it's not unbearable by any means, but it's appreciably tougher. However, it does iron out beautifully with a bit of speed, so that on this road, once you start getting the car moving along quickly, it rides really nicely. It deals with the bumps. It begins to glide over them rather than crashing heavily over them. You feel those differentials when you get on the gas, particularly coming out of a tight corner, and both axles seem to bind, clawing more grip out of the road, sending you off down the next straight. So this circuit pack car does have a more purposeful character about it, but it's not more playful. That's an important point. Just because it's got those two Torsen differentials, it doesn't mean that it's more playful, more slidey, more drifty than the normal car. In fact, on the road at least, it's not wildly playful at all. What you're not going to be doing in your GR Yaris on the road is drifting it about like it's a Talbot Sunbeam. It's not like that. It doesn't behave like a rear-wheel drive car. Instead, it just feels absolutely pinned to the road. So much grip, infinite traction. The balance is really sweet. It's a lovely neutrally balanced car. The chassis is just so well sorted. Even without the four-wheel drive system, even without that sense sometimes of it wanting to power oversteer away from a corner, this car's fun to drive. It's just really, really well honed. Good manual gear shift as well, tight direct throw. The automatic rev match, which you can switch on and off at the press of a button down here, it's not brilliant, it's not the smoothest. It is fantastic, this little Yaris. And the circuit pack one does feel like a more purposeful kind of car. But I just wish that you could play with its balance on the power coming away from a corner a little bit more. I just wish it was a little bit more willing just to step out of line slightly and slide a little bit. Just occasionally you feel it starting to do it, just there. But it's not often enough, and the road has to be wet. It has to be a wet road. Otherwise, you need loads of space. You need a circuit to make it do it in the dry. But it's such a lot of fun to drive this thing. It really is. The question is, if you choose one of this car's rivals, could you save yourself a shed load of money and have just as much fun?
Meet the GR Yaris's bitter rival. The Ford Fiesta ST is the best small hot hatch out there, and this edition variant the finest of the lot. It too has a 3-cylinder turbo engine, but with less shove, a nice round 200 horsepower. It's front-wheel drive only with a limited slip differential. At each corner you'll find a manually adjustable coilover. This is the most focused Fiesta ST yet. Just 300 will be sold in the UK, each one costing £27,000. That's £3,000 less than a basic GR Yaris and £6,500 less than a circuit pack car.
First time I jumped out of that Yaris and into this Fiesta earlier today, I actually laughed because compared to that Toyota, this little Ford feels a bit half-hearted. Its engine feels a bit limp. On paper, this ST motor is only down by 60 horsepower or so. It feels more like 100. So that Toyota does make this Ford feel a bit like a little toy car. But only to begin with. I promise you, it's only a false impression to begin with. This little Fiesta ST is brilliant. Its chassis feels even better resolved than the Yaris is. It's so good. I thought that on these slightly bumpy roads, the coilover suspension might be a bit unforgiving, might make the car feel a bit tough, a bit fidgety. Not a bit of it. The way this car flows along a road is sensational. It really is. The suspension deals with bumps and uneven sections of road so cleverly. And then the way it gets into corners feels so neutral, so adjustable, so playful. It's unbelievable. It's way more playful than the Yaris, only going into the corner, of course, not coming out, but going in. It does things that Yaris will never do. It does steer well, this car, sharp, incisive steering. But compared to that Toyota, it is just a little bit numb. There's not a great deal of feedback right in the middle of the corner. The car rotates around its own center point and just feels magical in that moment when you're tipping it into a bend. It's all about flow, this car. Get it on the right road, and this is exactly the right road, and it flows along it beautifully. It feels wonderful. The balance, the poise, the body control. There's an amount of body roll that just lets you feel the grip down the side of the car, and that just makes it feel alive rather than just completely inert and aloof. I just love driving this thing. It doesn't feel like it's got bundles of grip on this slightly wet surface, so it really does move around quite a lot. I adore these things. The sensations that you feel when driving it along a really great road, they just make you fall in love with driving again. This is what it's all about. I suspect, in order to justify the extra cost of that Toyota, you have to be prepared to drive it bloody hard on the road, or use it on a circuit, because only when you do that, drive it like a madman on the road, or take it on track, do you begin to appreciate what that four-wheel drive system is really doing for you. So this little Fiesta ST, this front-wheel drive 200 horsepower Fiesta ST, it might be more fun more of the time.
Make no mistake, the GR Yaris is a very special car. Is the circuit pack the one to have? You'd need to use it on track regularly to really make the most of the upgrades. On the road, a basic GR Yaris is just as much fun. Never mind hot hatches, the GR Yaris will frighten sports cars and supercars on soggy B roads. I just wish it had a slightly more playful personality. It is nailed into the road surface, that's where its speed comes from, but a touch more playfulness would go a very long way. Which brings me on to the Fiesta ST Edition. You saw how much fun I had driving it. Without exaggeration, this is one of the most entertaining cars on sale today, regardless of price. The GR Yaris is brilliant, but for me, the Fiesta ST is even more fun. Thank you for watching this PistonHeads video. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and head over to PistonHeads.com.